Good day. The topic that we are going to discuss now is about globalization and human development. The contents that we will tackle in this presentation are the ones you see in the screen right now, such as what are globalization and human development, the major factors in globalization, the aspects and effects of globalizations, and so on. Together with me in this video is Ms. Jaire Ang, Mr. Tristan Cabrera, and Ms. Prina Fajardo, and we are going to get you through the concept of globalization and human development. The purpose of this lesson is to define what globalization is, discuss how globalization started, identify the importance of globalization in human development, describe the significant factors in globalization, the four basic aspects of globalization, and the areas of globalization. Also, in this lesson, we will deal with the benefits and adverse effects of globalization in society. First in the list, what is globalization and human development? In here, we can see that globalization is the process of interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments worldwide. On the other hand, human development is the concept of development that has to do with creation and improving living conditions where people can develop their full potential, can have a long and healthy life, can have access to an appropriate education system, can develop their potential to the fullest, and be productive in order to have the opportunity to live according to their needs and interests.
Hi, I'm Jaira Ang. I'm going to discuss the major factors in globalization. The wide-ranging effects of globalization are complex and politically charged. As with the major technological advances, globalization benefits society as a whole while harming certain groups. Understanding the relative cost and benefit can pave the way of alleviating problems while sustaining the wider payoff. A variety of factors have contributed the process of globalization. So, the major factors in globalizations are number 1, removal of cross-border trade barriers. Number 2, the advances in transportation and communication technology, including steamship, jet engine, and container ships. Number 3, the rise of internet and mobile phones. 4. The increase of global interactions contribute to international trade ideas and culture. However, conflict and diplomacy are also large parts of the history of globalization and modern. Next slide. Four basic aspects of globalization. Number 1, trade and transaction. Number 2, capital and investment movement. Number 3, migration and movement of people and dissemination of knowledge. Under this are the examples. Next slide. That's all. Thanks.
So these are the four aspects of globalization. The first one is global warming. As we all know, global warming is a gradual increase in the Earth's temperature generally due to greenhouse effect caused by increased level of carbon dioxide, CFCs, and other pollutants in the air. Number 2 is the cross-boundary water. Also called as the transboundary water, it is primarily a river that crosses at least one political border, either a border within a state or an international boundary. In addition, Bangladesh has the highest number of these rivers, including the two of the world's largest rivers, such as the Ganges and the Brahmaputra River. The third one is air pollution. And as we can see, it is a mixture of solid particles and gases in the air, car emissions, chemicals from factories, dust, pollen, and mold spores may be suspended as particles. Ozone, Gas is major air pollution in cities. When ozone forms air pollution, it is also called smog. Some air pollutants are poisonous. And the last one is overfishing. And as we can see in the photo, overfishing is the removal of a species of fish from a body of water at a rate that the species cannot replenish anymore, resulting in those species becoming underpopulated in that area. Today, these same fish species are threatened to extinction due to uncontrollable and unsustainable overfishing practices that are used.
So, when did globalization start? Since the beginning of time, globalization is on the process. The people began to acknowledge the concept of trading the moment the first trade or transaction happened. That is considered start of the globalization. In fact, the invention of currency, is one of the progression or the mark as the progression of the globalization. Imagine or in the past that the people use copper, silver, and gold to exchange goods. So, uh, aside from currency, uh, it says that the globalization has influenced the uh, technological advances as well. In order to fulfill the trades and business demands, people with money or people in the field of business are investing their uh, funds into improving the means of transportation, improving the trade systems, as well as the data transfer between countries or between places. So now that we all knew when did globalization start, uh, let's move on to the areas of globalization. The first one to notice is the economic globalization. It says that it is the improvement of the trade systems. This economic globalization also includes the monitoring of the value of gold, monitoring the value of the currency, like peso to dollar, which is 52 pesos to $1. Those are factors that the economic globalization is improving. Next is the cultural globalization. It says that cultural globalization is one of the downsides since trendsetters will uh, make their trends go boom. Some of the conservative tribes or conservative group of people with beliefs and customs might uh, might be affected by those trends as well as their customs, their wares, because there will be a dominant influence in the age of globalization. Next one is the political globalization. We all knew that UN and World Health Organization are influencing the world as of now. But in globalization, their influence might get wider or uh, they might get power via implementing the influence on the international stages. The next is the sociological globalization. Uh, it says that we need to expect that the data transfer will be almost real time. Like for example, delivering a 1 GB message, 1 GB of message uh, from other country or to other country will be almost real time. Like uh, just a snap of your fingers, the data will be transferred. So we need to expect those developments because the globalization is ongoing or on the process. The last one is the technological globalization. Like what I have said earlier, people in the field of business are investing their funds. So technological advances is now possible or will now be sped up because people with money or people on this uh, field will improve their technology, either the production, the promotion, or even the means of transporting their goods, as well as the quality. So, those are the five main areas of globalization. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Prima AJ Fajardo, and I'm going to tackle about the positive and negative effects of globalization. First is the free trade. It reciprocally develops economies all over the world. It creates jobs, makes companies more competitive, and lowers prices for consumers. There is a cultural intermingling, and each country is learning more about other cultures. Distance is no longer a barrier for many services to happen. Quick dissemination of information through the internet. Next, it is simply finance regulations, eliminate mediators, and break down the barriers between the world financial centers. There is now a worldwide market for companies and consumers who have access to products from different countries. And lastly, it increases in human exchanges such as migration or traveling. These human exchanges have contributed to the development of cultural exchanges. This means that different customs and habits shared among local communities have been shared among communities that have different procedures and even different beliefs. And now let's go to the negative effects of globalization. First is the cultural loss. Specific cultural characteristics from some countries have disappeared, from languages to traditions or even specific industries. Next is income inequalities. Disproportional wealth and trades that benefits parties differently. For developed countries is that jobs are lost and transferred to lower cost countries. Next is workers in developed countries like the US face pay cut demands from employers who threaten to export jobs. This has created a culture of fear for many middle class workers who have little leverage in global trade. Serious environmental problems such as depletion of natural resources, deforestation, and the destruction of ecosystems and loss of biodiversity. Deadly diseases like HIV or AIDS are being spread by travelers to the remotest corners of the globe. And lastly, the exploitation of labor and increase in human trafficking. Prisoners and child workers are used to work in inhuman conditions. Safety standards are ignored to produce cheap goods. And that's all. And for the summary of this report, we have learned the four fundamental aspects of globalizations are trade and transactions, capital and investments, investment movements, migration and mobility of people, and the dissemination of knowledge. Society has benefited from globalization by free trade, more jobs, makes companies more competitive, and lowers prices for environmental problems such as depletion of natural resources, deforestation, and the destruction of ecosystems and loss of